Joining us now, president of the National Action Network and host of MS Now's Politics Nation, the Reverend Al Sharpton, and co-host of FAQ NYC and associate professor of political science at Fordham University, Christina Greer. Rev, thanks for being with us today, and I'm so sorry about the loss of your friend. I think Antonia did a beautiful job remembering the broad strokes of his career and what he meant to this country. Tell us what he meant to you.
Well, he meant everything to me. I was a boy preacher in Brooklyn, New York, and my mother was afraid, being a very strict Pentecostal. I was being lured too much into wanting to get involved in activism. It was a very active time in the late 60s. And so she brought me to Reverend William Jones, who pastored a church in Brooklyn. And he introduced me to Jesse Jackson. I became the youth director of Operation Breadbasket chapter in Brooklyn. And Reverend Jackson became a mentor to me. He was younger than the older preachers. I was only 13 when I became youth director. He was 27. They were all in their 30s and 40s, come from a pedigree of ministers as their father and grandfather. Reverend Jackson was born out of wedlock. I came out of a broken home, so I could relate to him. And down through the years, I learned how to deal with policy, study. He was a hard taskmaster. He would never give me a break, and it made me the better for it. So we had a very personal relationship all the way till the end. I went to see him every Christmas. I used to take my kids, and last Christmas and the Christmas before last, we'd see him even when he was suffering with Parkinson's. So it's very personal to me, as well as political, because everything Reverend Jackson fought for that came out of the King movement, Voting Rights Act of 65, Civil Rights Act of 64, is at risk now. Fighting DEI is fighting Civil Rights Act 64. Fighting voting rights and dealing with trying to redistrict things is fighting against the Voting Rights Act. So we should mourn Reverend Jackson by also moving on the things Reverend Jackson was about. That's what's at risk.
Why do you think that it is at risk today? Why did the country elect somebody that would put it at risk, Rev?
I think that if I learned one thing from Reverend Jackson is that the rhythms of history is you make one step forward, then they're going to try to push one step back. He used to say, Al, we had fought 68 when Dr. King got killed. There was an anti-war movement. There was a hippie movement. We all were moving forward. Then there was the backlash. Nixon got elected November 68 because the forces on the Democratic side were split between Vietnam and racial tension. Nixon was impeached, and we got Jimmy Carter in. Backlash, we get Ronald Reagan. So you've got to understand the currents. 2 terms of Barack Obama, backlash. We got Donald Trump. We come back and beat Trump. 1 term with Biden, backlash, they didn't want to vote for a black woman. We end up with Trump again. So those of us that studied under people like Jackson understand the waters are not going to always go your way, but you must stay in the water and keep going. And I think these midterms can turn the tide if we understand what's at stake.
Well, let's bring the political scientist into this. So, Christina, you flagged this to our team. This is an interview that he did with Playboy back in 1969. And there's this portion that I want to read. The interviewer asks, it might seem incongruous to some that you can make this sweeping indictment of America, an indictment that could easily serve as the lead paragraph in one of the Students for a Democratic Society's revolutionary pamphlets. And yet, as economic director of SCLC and leader of Operation Breadbasket, you were leading blacks who clearly want to buy into the American dream. And his response in part was, it's very simple. For all its faults, America is the only country with the capacity to save the world, even at the very moment that we seem bent on destroying it. That also applies so well to today, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think, first things first, I send my condolences to the Jackson family and to Reverend Sharpton, who the last time I saw Reverend Jackson was at the NAN, National Action Network conference. What I think is so important for so many people to remember is that Jackson wasn't just fighting for black people. He was fighting for Americans and for the dignity of Americans. So when we think about the March on Washington, it's not the March on Washington, it's the March on Washington for jobs and freedom. Yeah. And so Jackson's foundation in helping us understand not just race, but class as well. You know, Operation Breadbasket, he says it is violence to have 30 million starving Americans in a nation this wealthy. It is political violence to have people not have the same types of schools. You started this segment with that beautiful clip when he's on Sesame Street. Started to, you know, help families, public access television to help families that don't have daycare, and so they could have
great
television.
tell kids that they're worthy and they're somebody regardless of their circumstances.
And the latter part of that clip, it says, I must be protected and I must be respected, regardless of whether I'm on welfare, regardless you deserve it. And so his message transcends this racial conversation. A lot of people are saying he did so much for Black America. He absolutely did. There's no David Dinkins without Jesse Jackson. We saw that picture in the clip. There's no Barack Obama without Jesse Jackson. There's a myriad of Black mayors across the country that wouldn't have gotten elected without Jesse Jackson. But there are so many millions of Americans who can stand taller because of the work that he did locally, nationally, and internationally. So the idea of him as an American hero and a patriot cannot be encapsulated in a small clip.
I think that's a really good point, and to broaden it out to not just Black Americans, but all Americans. And just to linger on this interview just for a second longer and what it means and how relevant it is today, Rev, I want to go back to this answer from Jackson. It's very simple. For all its faults, America is the only country with the capacity to save the world, even at the very moment that we seem bent on destroying it. Do you still believe that America is that country?
I think America is still able to save the world. And I also think the latter part of that quote, it does seem like we're